Yinspired is dedicated to all the grandmothers and aunties whose voices weren't heard or listened to, created for the daughters. Aloha and welcome back to Yinspired, a podcast celebrating different perspectives in Chinese medicine and integrative medicine. Here, we have casual conversations with everyday practitioners, patients, and students exploring the messy truths of medicine, healing, the taboo, and life. I'm your host, Dr. Haunani Chong-Drake, a clinical doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, a cultural practitioner and steward, mom, dog mama, and military spouse. Today, we have Dr. Krystal Couture returning for part 2, or a continuation. I have a feeling you'll be on more than twice. As we were just talking before we hit record, we probably have about 30 or 40 podcasts worth of ideas just between what we talked about. So we'll see where we go today. But I just want to thank you for, again, sharing your time. I know you have been on several podcasts, but for Yinspired, you were episode 11, where we set a really solid foundation for just opening up the conversation of pelvic health and getting pelvic health 101 from the lens of acupuncture. So for those who haven't listened to that, I'm going to encourage them to go back and listen. And then what we can pick up today is going a little deeper, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Honani. I'm so excited to be with you and to be with all of the Yinspired listeners again. You have such an active listening base, and I'm so glad that what we're sharing about pelvic health and acupuncture is resonating and connecting. And as you said, I'm excited to take this to the next level and go deeper with you today.
Thank you. One of the places where we left off, it kind of was like we started the conversation. We introduced people to this idea of the spirit of the points, because we were talking about how acupressure points are not just physical locations, but they have function, and their names often reflect a psychosocial, emotional, spiritual aspect of what that point can do as well. So
Absolutely.
I think that was really eye-opening for people who haven't studied Chinese medicine or acupuncture. And so I'm
Yeah.
hoping that we can kind of weave in and out of that as a framework, as a container for where today's conversation will go, where we speak more specifically to maybe some conditions that I know I had some listeners reach out to me about, as well as my own readings that I've, gone down the rabbit hole learning about the history of pelvic health and pelvic health in general. How does that
Yeah.
sound to you?
That sounds amazing. I would love to just get people who are listening to sort of understand the spirit. And so we'll get into that in kind of a deeper level as we talk about points, conditions, all of those things. But just to get a touch of it, if we think about kidney 22, which is walking on the veranda, it's kidney spirit point, kidney 22 on the chest. It's a really nice point. And
Up here
and
by
it's
the rib cage, right? So for
yeah,
people can kind of
exactly.
visualize it.
Yeah, between the breasts, it's just one below the nipple. So it's in a great location to center around the heart. It's also one of the intersecting points of the kidney and the Chong meridians. So if we're an acupuncturist and we're listening to this, we can posit that this point could be a beneficial point, as well as some of these other kidney spirit points for working with the reproductive system, right? But before we sort of go there, if we think about that name, walking on the veranda, and we just close our eyes for a sec and take a deep breath. What is that? Where does that bring us? Where does that bring you? You have this idea in your head, walking on the veranda. Where do you go? And we can just kind of honor and respect that for one moment. And whenever I get this point, I get one of two places. One, I see myself on this large, massive, porch, veranda, I guess you could say. It's wood, and there's these mountains and pine trees and sort of like a Colorado-esque landscape. That's one place. And it's quiet. There's not a lot of wind. It's cool and really comfortable. Another place I see is going out on a more modern sort of beachscape veranda and sort of seeing this gentle waves crashing in, the sun coming down. And it sort of depends on the moment in time which vision I connect to. But the key is for me is that I always end up experiencing a calm. And when we look back to what does this point bring us from the spirit of the point and the classics, it really comes back to after one is going through something that's very difficult and, maybe they're in bed for a time, they're inside for a time. They kind of open those doors. French doors is how I see it. They open those French doors and they walk out for the first time. And there's this sense of renewed hope. There's this sense of peace. There's a sense of possibility. There's no hustle. It's not a fast point. It's a slow point. It's a healing, nurturing space. So when we think about that and then we layer it with the more, sort of TCM approach to looking at the Chong vessel, for example, looking at our reproductive stuff, it's like, okay, we can use this point because it's useful for regulating the Chong, for getting that channel to be running, to get it online. We can bring that in with our master and coupling points. All of those things can work really nicely. And if we use that point when that client is in that space of they've just overcome something, what are they looking for right now? That's where the magic occurs, I think. That's where we get into this layering that really helps us to connect deeply with clients. And when we hit it right, there is so much emotion that we get with clients. And I see this so much more with the spirit aspect than with TCM. We can have the best TCM protocol to meet the client exactly where they are. And then we add a spirit. Maybe it's in the same set, maybe it's in a secondary set that we're using. All of a sudden, the tears flow
Yeah.
or the joy comes up, right? And so this is the power of the spirit of the point. So I ask all of you, what does, and especially you, Juanani, because you're here, what did you feel with Kidney 22? What did you feel with walking on the veranda?
Just go deep. This is what we did last time. We just dove right in. Well, not surprising based off of our connection. I had the same two things. But with those images, I also felt a little like, oh, I'm supposed to pick one, right? That
Mm.
indecisiveness of, oh, she asked me to find one image and here my body, mind, self showed me two. And so I was like, which one do I choose? Until you shared yours. And then there was this huge relief of like, oh, yeah. So then what I physically felt was just relief and my breath as if I were stepping out to either one of those, because that's how I felt it is like either of those visuals, whether it was the mountainscape or the oceanscape, was this feeling of like renewed breath, but not in the sense of energized breath, more like relief, like
Yes.
the arms go wide and it gets lighter up here around the shoulders, the chest, around the heart. So that's how I felt it both physically, and I felt that mental piece want to come in. And as soon as I took that breath, it was like, it can be both, how Nani, it can be both, like
Yes.
there's the answer.
Yeah. So, Hanani, I want to bring up the point of this, the next aspect, because these things go in layers. And so that breath, that of the relief, okay? This is where we get our connection to the pelvis. And sure, we can really talk about the connection here. We're in the rib cage. We can be connecting with the diaphragm. We're a little high up, but there's physiological connection there to make a case for it. But on that emotional level, that big breath and release of relief, if we're getting that in the respiratory diaphragm, and we're also connecting down to the pelvic diaphragm, then we're starting to use that vagus nerve to help us to heal both the respiratory and the pelvis and everything that exists, between them and then connects from them in this interesting web that is our body.
Okay, this is so beautiful. Our major muscle of breathing is our diaphragm, right? So that's the one we're talking about, is up here under the rib cage area that regulates our breathing. But it does mirror what you say, the pelvic layering of that circular net of our pelvic muscles down below.
Bingo.
So it's that microcosm macrocosm reflection there is when my breath releases, that has a mirroring effect to the pelvic structure as well, that release, not just physically, but then also like a fresh of breath air. There's probably more circulation, a release of down in my pelvis as well. Is that
Absolutely.
tracking? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Research shows that the fibers from, in many cases, in many cadavers, the fibers from the vagus nerve go all the way down to the pelvis. So, absolutely, there is that connection. And then, on the anatomical level, right, there's a pressure gradient that exists, right, with the breath and the pelvic floor. If we just let the respiratory diaphragm push down when we're pushing the breath out, right? If everything is going down in the rib cage and we allow the pelvic diaphragm to go down as well, what's going to happen to all those organs? They're not going to go up. They're not going to stay in. Our urine and our fecal matter and all those things aren't going to stay in either. So there's an interesting pressure gradient between the two. And we talked a bit about the pelvic breath in the last session, and we're sort of like taking that to the next level with this conversation here, which is really, really exciting. But yes, those emotional releases, those changes that we feel that are not like, I got something done today, or you know what I mean? That aren't like superficial, that are like really embodied within us, wherever that might be. Maybe it's in your head, maybe it's in your right hand. I don't know. Wherever those embodiments are, that creates this ripple effect from the cells of that place to the cells of the entire body. And, that's where I think the really deep healing comes in, which is really why I feel like this addition of the spirit of the points is so, so vital to what we're doing with TCM.
Yeah. And TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, for those who maybe don't know that terminology, there is this constant, like you said, this overlaying, overlapping. I'm so visual. So I'm like having all these visuals showing me right now. I'm going to try to put it into words. But so many people that come to us seeking support, whether it was for tightness in the chest,
Mhm.
they may not have been coming to us because they were also having incontinence or low libido or something having to do with more of our technical pelvic region.
Yes.
And what they're coming in for is going to have a ripple effect into their pelvic region. From an anatomical level, you're talking about the vagus nerve. I have a feeling we're going to get into fascia here as well, because those fascia lines, from a Chinese medicine meridian perspective, the meridians that connect from head down to toe, toe down to head, hand to heart, the whole cycle. And then just knowing we store those emotions, the unseen parts of our experiences, the spiritual, the heart, the emotions, even our thoughts. We can't see them in dissection, but we store them in our physical body.
Totally.
So when we tap one, we create a ripple effect that affects the whole.
Yeah, absolutely right on. I'm totally with you. I completely agree with what you're saying right now. And I think, that there are so many layers of connections. And I think as a human existing in the world and also as practitioners, sort of reflecting upon that, remembering, having that like remembering, inside of oneself of the layers is such an important part to how we treat as practitioners, but also how we just exist as humans. So, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to bring in another piece because I think some people might have heard the term, because I think we're talking about the same thing, but I want to hear your perspective on it, especially in movement spaces, somatic movement, dance, especially this. I heard a lot of this in yoga asana practices, yoga spaces, that the hips hold emotion. Have you heard that
Right.
before? Yeah. So for some people, they're like, oh, yeah, I've heard this a lot. Some people are like, what? I've never heard that. But this is what we're talking about. It's like we can have an emotion stored in our body, and you might feel it more in your chest. It might feel more like anxiety. It might feel more like restlessness, but that also affects the hip or the pelvic area.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that we treat as practitioners, we can have this sort of finesse and tenderness as
Hmm.
we apply needles or whatever our modality might be
Hmm.
that can really help us to connect with the client on that level so that they feel that rapport and can find those ways into the release of whatever the tissue might be. If I think about, for instance, if I think about that kidney sinew, and so those sinews, right, they're at the basic term, they're a musculotendinous structure. So they're a little bit more superficial in that they're more physical than energetic. There's sort of a physical aspect of Chinese medicine. Very often we think of Chinese medicine as having this energetic effect. And if we understand it a little bit more, we understand its connection to the organs and the organ systems, right? But the sort of musculoskeletal aspect is something that very often clients and people who are not practitioners don't understand or don't think of us first for. And yet, it's a big part of our medicine going back, certainly into history, right? And so when we think about the kidney sinew, for instance, and the kidney channel, of course, runs up the inside of the legs. And we just talked about how it sort of comes up, the center of the chest on two sides, either side of the breastbone, right? We have muscles in that sinew that really impact our health and that organ system health and that energetic health. So, our adductor magnus, our gracilis, the most medial aspect of the hamstrings, even are part of the kidney sinew. The pelvic floor is part of the kidney sinew. And so is the coccygeus muscle, which, that little tiny bone at the base of the sacrum, the coccyx or the tailbone, there's a little muscle that comes off of that bone. And that's part of the kidney sinew. The muscles of the anterior neck, so longissimus capitis and longus colli, are part of the kidney sinew. And so when we think of that, if we're doing shallow breathing, right, and our breath is just coming like above our collarbones, then these muscles are getting overworked. That breath is not getting down to the pelvic floor. And when that's happening, we can really be doing the whole of our body a disservice because we aren't connecting in to the depth that is possible when we heal. And so I want to kind of bring this back around, this feeling of what's possible to what you said. When we treat something, we can access something else. So I had a client actually that had a hysterectomy. And she actually has a pile of autoimmune conditions. And I was seeing her post hysterectomy. And, we certainly couldn't get too close to her incisions. And what I was called to do is really work on the level of the kidney sinew and to sort of see if we could help basically the chong, which is our sea of blood, and help the kidney, which is, helpful in the reproductive arena, to really support this client where she is. And the coolest thing happened when after, we kind of poked through the points on both sides and she had her time to rest with her heat lamp and everything. I was like, "How was that? How was your session? How do you feel now?" And she's like, "I feel really good." And it's like, "Okay, that's great. What else is there?" Right? Because I always have to ask the deeper question. And I really pushed her. And she's like, "I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but I feel like I felt arousal in my body. And I haven't felt that in a really, really long time." And so it's cool to see how now we didn't go anywhere near the pelvic floor. I didn't treat those muscles that are the key muscles to help support arousal. I didn't even treat the acupuncture points. I treated the Ashi points along the kidney sinews and really avoided the lower abdomen altogether because of, such a recent hysterectomy. And these are the results that we achieved. And so for me, what I was seeing is like such a layering of this being a huge part of this client's journey. And it wasn't what she was in for that day. It wasn't even what we were primarily working on in this segment of her treatment. It was really like long game goal. And that's what we achieved. So there's a lot of power in what we do, how we do it, and the eloquence and the story of it.
What a gift you gave that person that day to feel pleasure, to
Right?
feel arousal with all the things in our lives that are constantly depleting us. To feel pleasure and arousal at that physical level means that you're not in the fight or flight, right? That you've settled into parasympathetic. You heard the term, fight or flight, and then people for parasympathetics, they just stop at rest and digest.
Yes.
I always include, because I think it's so important, rest, digest, and breed. And
Yes.
breed is so animalistic, but what it comes to is this idea of your creative, your sacral, your reproductive energy. So, however you want to create in the world, whether it's an actual human or your clinic or your artwork, that's for people to choose. But when we're depleted, which so much of this world is doing with our energy, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, is like depleting, taking from us. To g- how What a gift you gave back to that person, even though that wasn't like the goal of the session. To be like, I am
Yeah.
so relaxed. I'm back in my parasympathetic. I'm back in my rest, digest, breathe system. What a gift.
Right? So there's also, I love that, and that kind of thing happens a lot when we settle. These stories for
Mm,
us as practitioners, we very often like keep them to ourselves because they're like
it's so
our
true.
little sacred moments, and we're not sharing them. I'm sharing this on a podcast because it feels like it's this really safe container because you've provided that. But, like, I'm not gonna write a blog on that on my clinic website because it's such an individualized experience, right? So, we have these moments that are pure magic, and they come from, didactic and diagnostic skills. They come from our knowledge, and they come from us being able to interlay our intuition with those things, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's so cool. But you bring up another point that's really interesting, Haunani, which is that there's a component that we don't even more than pelvic health that we don't talk about, which is that of sexual health. And, the journey to pelvic health can be one that is a bit arduous and a bit complicated because it brings up the things that are wrong, the things that are uncomfortable, the things that are shameful,
The taboo.
the taboo.
Yeah.
And then there's this whole like sexual health part that very often is associated with it, right? So
Mm,
so often, your clients that have leakage issues, so if you have them fill out one of the assessment tools or the questionnaires, the objective measures, there we go. And it's like sex, what are you talking about? And all the boxes are checked no because they're not even trying to engage in this because they're too nervous, they're going to have pain or have dryness or have leakage or whatever it might be, right? Very often, clients with pelvic dysfunction, as a blanket term, aren't even getting to sexual health. And that's sad. But also the fact that we are starting to talk about this, and as acupuncturists, we have so many tools for both pelvic health and for sexual health, we can really start to shed light on this and we can really start to help people feel better. Now, sexual health is so important because it also releases all these good hormones and makes us happier people. So we need this. At
we do.
any age, we need this.
And we do. I'm so happy we're going down this this conversation route because it is in so many cultures, families, you don't talk about it. But how else are you supposed to learn? How else are you supposed to explore and grow in all the other ways we're asked to be human if we don't talk about it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking right now, and I'm like, I don't know if the idea of sexual health was ever talked about in school. We talked about it as quote unquote libido, low libido and high libido, but mostly as low libido in school. But there
Right.
was no open conversations about like, how are you going to have these conversations with your patients? By the way, before that, they're gonna come up in conversation.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once clients get really comfortable, let's say they're in for their hip pain, right?
Yeah.
and their hip pain gets better. That's, that's within our wheelhouse. So long as there's not something, real serious going on, right? Their hip pain gets better and they're like, "Hey, by the way, I don't know if you can help with this. However, I've been feeling X, Y, or Z in regards to their sexual health. Is this something that you can help me with?" And it is. It's so important for us to be able to have those conversations and have the tools to be able to help treat sexual dysfunction and to understand the layering, right? Because you also get the type of client who will come in and want to be treated for sexual dysfunction and not have awareness to the other patterns that are happening in their body. And I don't want to be stereotypical, but very often it feels like that's a male sort of thought process, right? Like, I need this fixed. And it's like, okay, what's going on with, your pelvis, your piriformis, whatever it might be that is totally restricted in mobility is having a
Mm,
direct impact on this. So we have to fix this first. But for women, I feel like it's very often the opposite. It's that, we see the process of, okay, we've got to fix whatever this pathology that I can't deal with anymore is, and then we stop. Instead of taking the next step toward like elevation, we stop at I can live with this. We stop at surviving instead of going to thriving. Why can't why can't we go to thriving?
but yeah, why can't we? Gosh, it's so ingrained, I think, in a lot of ways that women have had to do so much of their own work to understand their own bodies because it's not taught to us. Our doctors don't often know
Right?
about our
Right?
bodies because they haven't been taught. Like women's
Right.
health and women's research has been such put on the back burner for so long. There's no money, there's no funding to it. So we don't really have like role models. Some families do. I just met someone yesterday. She was like, I come from generations of midwives. I knew about my body and my, like when I was 7, 8, 9, I was teaching all my friends. And I just thought, oh my gosh, where has that gone? And it still happens. I know young kids are learning about their bodies at that age and they're going to share, but in a way that is celebratory rather than taboo, that they're giggling and talking about it in a way that is not okay or not appropriate versus recognizing like I hope my daughter feels as comfortable talking about her reproductive organs as she does about I've got a dry patch on my upper arm, right? Or whatever. I made that up. I don't
Yeah.
wanna say she has that, but it's our bodies and they're in the whole aspect of our body being sacred and something to be celebrated rather than just, like, dealt with.
Yes, for sure, for sure. There's such this component of I think now that acupuncturists are getting we're a little bit more mainstream. People know about us a little more, and that is awesome. But we are also now falling into the medical model, and the medical model is geared toward uh not prevention, but fixing,
Curative.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fixing, yeah. So we're in this of, once someone has something wrong with them, then it's
Right.
like, "You know what? Before I go down this road of taking this medication, you know what? I'm gonna go see that acupuncture." That's awesome. Like, keep doing that 100%. And also, here's the PSA, your acupuncturist can help you not only get past whatever that is, but get to the next level of where you wanna go in your life so that you can be in the energy, in the vibration, in the frequency, body, mind, and spirit of thriving, of living your very best
Yeah.
life. There's
Yeah.
magic in that.
Yeah. I think what we're talking about is this idea that we've pathologized aging in different stages of our being. It's become a pathology rather than just a stage or a season of life. And when it
Oh my
becomes a
God, yes.
pathology, then it's a dysfunction. It's something that's not functioning. It's broken. And it feels that way. I mean, I see why it's considered a pathology because it feels not right. But when we also can reframe it in Chinese medicine, we do this. I know in Ayurveda, they do it well. This idea of there are different seasons of our life. We have the 7 times 7 for female bodies, and then there's 8 times 8 for the
For
male
male bodies.
body. And these are the different seasons. Every 7 years is a new season for that female and what she's gonna experience or what they're gonna experience physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And that is embedded in this medicine that you and I both geek out and love about, and also is not part of the role modeling we get, at least in the US healthcare system, that instead it's just something that's constantly breaking and we need to fix it.
Yeah.
Rather
Yeah.
than seeing it,
Right
it's
on.
this natural blooming and growing, right? You can't compare the seed to the tree. If we did
Can't.
that, the seed would be broken. It's big and you can't compare the tree to the seed because it's big in limbs and structure. And we can't even compare the tree to the flower, right? What it's blooming into or the fruit, right? They're all different seasons, they're all different stages and parts of a natural cycle of life. And when we just think of it as all I'm breaking down as I get older, it's a very different mindset, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, than this is what my body's supposed to do. It's supposed to
Yes.
age, it's supposed to change.
Yes. Well, and there's this microcosm, right? So that's kind of what we look at as these life cycles. And then but within that, within those 7-year periods, we have to remember that each year has its seasons within it. Each month has its seasons within it. Each day has its seasons within it. Each hour, each
Yeah.
minute, each second, right?
Yeah, it's like all these cogs of these wheels at different sizes all connecting and turning
Yes.
at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. So when we kind of break it down, when someone is going through a season, let's say, and let's say it's a miscarriage, right? That may take the 7-year cycle to, process through and for the cells to completely turn over. Sure. But there's going to be a microcosm of time. And that could be different for everyone, where they're heavily processing through that season and working through that experience and transforming that experience from whatever it feels like, grief, anger, frustration, into something else, which could be a new opportunity. It could be a stability. It could be a change in trajectory. We're not here to say that like the most negative negatives become positives. That's lofty for some people to believe and connect to, and that's okay. You don't have to believe that unless you choose to. And if you do, cool. If you don't, that's cool too. But there is transformation, and that's the key, is we can really help to support people with the transformation through these seasons, because the stagnation is where our bodies get into trouble. It's where our bodies start to then hold the negative emotions. They start to hold the patterns of thinking that are not optimized for us living our best lives.
It's a totally different paradigm of seeing like sexual health and pelvic health. We can see it, and most of our clients are going to see it as something that they want to address or fix, or they're going to see it potentially as like part of me is broken. And so
Yes.
it's upon us as practitioners to have that nuanced conversation of it's also part of the season of life that you're
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
potentially, right? And
Mhm.
we're also going to try to address this aspect that is not desirable for you.
And the season will change.
Yeah.
Seasons change. This season will change. And I think that's really important for us to help support our clients, and for those who are listening who are clients or not practitioners, to just keep in mind that if you're going through something that is particularly challenging or feels really hard and it's a tough walk, this is just a season.
Yeah.
It will turn and the other side will look different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
such a good paradigm to just have in your back pocket rather than seeing it as this trajectory, this linear, like, oh man, now that it's bad, it's going to just get worse. Remembering like that yin yang, the the circular nature of life, that it's a season.
Absolutely.
More specific, how can practitioners differentiate between a structural pelvic floor issue and more of like a somatic manifestation of a stored emotion or mental pattern or trauma or chronic stress?
Don't I love, love, love this question? So, the way that I look at a body, and I can only give you, because this is a bit of uncharted territory, there's not really research on this weaving of the emotions and the structure in relation to pelvic dysfunction. So I'm going to give you 18 years worth of my clinical experience and thought process of where it has brought me today. When we look at a body, we need to be good observers of that body. And we need to look at what the body is objectively telling us as practitioners. And that's important not just for getting a baseline and sort of finding things, but it's also really important for us logistically with our notes as healthcare providers, right? So utilizing our palpation skills and really getting a feel of the tissues, the bone structures, and not just of the pelvic floor. That's part of the equation here, but really not every client is going to say, "Sure, I'm ready for you to palpate my pelvic floor on day 1." Many are not, and that's okay, even if they're coming in for pelvic health. So it's looking at the bigger components of the structure. What is the spine doing as the client is standing? What is the spine doing when the client is in prone? Is that different? Is that similar? And having our more orthopedic or sinew driven eye to sort of see what is the body telling us, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then to look further into range of motion. Is there a limitation? Does that person have a really hard time bending over to put their shoe on the one leg and they can do it easily on the other one? Well, that's going to tell us about, the rotation of the hip, the external rotation of the hip for sure. So just kind of looking at those sort of functional activities can be helpful. And that can say there's a restriction here. Okay? That's basically what that will say. Now, some of us have a lot more orthopedic background than others do. So we might then look at, do we have a rotation of the pelvis? Do we have a torsion of the sacrum? If these are things you don't know, you're not going to be able to look at them as a practitioner. But you can say in your palpation, it's like, "Oh, you know what? The iliac crest is a lot higher on the right side than it is on the left."
Yeah.
Great. That's information. We don't have to know what it means. We have to know a little bit about it. And then we want to palpate into those muscular tendinous structures, the sinews, and sort of see, do we have hyperactive motor points, right? So as soon as we dig a little thumb in, if we've got some muscle twitching or clenching or jumping that's already happening, well, we've got a little bit of hyperactivity there. Do we have
Mm-hmm.
really taut bands? Those taut bands, they may indicate tightness, but they might not be indicating that we have hypercontraction. Maybe we did at some point, but they might be indicating a stagnation issue in that shortened position. So those are important things to sort of start looking at. So I ask you, if you haven't taken my class or any other type of ortho assessment type class, to start using your eyes to look, use your hands to feel, and that's going to help you to get into the tissues. Now, how do we know if this is an injured tissue due to some physical manifestation versus something emotional?
Yeah, like chronic stress or trauma that they're holding on to and emotional.
I mean, your guess is as good as mine. But my key here is really listening to the clients, okay? And some of this has to do with their constitution of really who they are, but you will have some clients that will come in and they will say, "This has been bound up since this point in my life when this happened.
Yeah.
When I had this fight with my sister and she moved out and they were a teenager." It's like, okay, well, we can probably guess maybe there was an injury there, but likely for whatever reason, that part of her body bound
Yeah.
with that emotion,
It
with that
constricted
grief.
during that,
Exactly.
yeah, that experience, and that got stored in the body.
Right. And then that pattern, we just kept repeating that pattern because that's what the body knew. And the body really likes homeostasis. So the body will balance that out somehow. So if it's bound up in the posterior rotators on the right hip, it's just bound up there, it's nice and tight there, then we're going to have something somewhere else, likely across the body in some way, up or down, that is going to be hypermobile. We're going to have this kind of zigzag pattern throughout the body where we've got these areas that are tight and bound, and then these areas that are hyper relaxed. Now, all of those tight bound areas, they might not hurt. They might not be the pain points. Maybe the pain points are on the other side of the body. Everybody is different. And we certainly in a podcast can't go over the details of that. However, we can, again, be investigative and look to see those imbalances. And when I train students, it's like they're looking at a spine on the table and it's like, okay, what doesn't look right here? What do you see? And it's like we can point out these points where things look different. It's like, okay, that's the first step. Then we can go to the next level. And sometimes clients don't know. Sometimes the clients will say, I had to hurt this. I had to injure it. I don't remember how, but this is what happened. And then you finally get into it a couple of sessions down the road, and they have a huge emotional release that they say, I had no idea that was there.
It's almost like the memory of something released, and then they're like, it's all connected.
Exactly. The tissue holds memory. And so even if we have that injury and it's not healed quite properly or optimally, let's go with that word
Hmm.
optimally, then can other emotions, can other tissue dysfunction get stuck there? I sure think so.
Yeah, it creates a place that can easily get stagnated or stuck in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can't think I can do everything diagnostically for every single client that walks in the door, unless you have a practice that is set up that you have a huge chunk of time with
Right.
each client.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's investigative. So the thing about it is this, layering the assessment, right? So on day 1, we can generally say we're probably pretty fast at looking at a tongue, taking a pulse, unless the pulses are only diagnostic, because there are some of those guys out there that are amazing with pulses and they'll feel a pulse for days and tell a whole life story. That's not me. I look for blocks in the pulses. I look for where can I go today with this? Um, so I can do a tongue, do a pulse pretty quickly. I can also get my hands on that client real quick in the standing position, see what we've got going on with the pelvis, see what we've going on with the spine, the other tissues, observe them, watch them walk in if you can. Watch them get up off the chair, right? All those things. Get a good palpation. Clients also really like your hands on them. So get a good palpation while they're laying down if you're dealing with some of these musculoskeletal things. Feel in. And then next session, we feel in again. Are we making progress? Are we noticing changes? Does the tissue feel different? Does it feel the same? If you do a lot of visceral work, like internal work, like palpation of organs and stuff like that, then that's your thing. You go into those organ tissues, see what we have for positioning, see what that feels like. Some people are like the energy scanners. Do your energy scan thing. I don't know how you document that, but do that, document it somehow so that you can align to what are you gaining in your diagnostics. No one can be me as a practitioner. No one can be
Right.
Haunani as a practitioner. We are all our own practitioners. We gain things from each other. Thank goodness. We're all beautiful resources to each other. But at the end of the day, so much of the medicine is how you translate that medicine. That's a key. That a little tiny bit of uniqueness and non-standardization is how we deeply connect with each client and how we can help them to move the needle the most, I think.
Yeah. No, thank you. I'm really glad you said that. Especially for new practitioners or students, they feel like that initial consultation, they have to know the whole story, right? There's a pressure. I don't know where that comes from. Maybe that's me and I'm projecting it onto the field and I apologize. But I definitely remember feeling like if I don't get the pattern diagnosis right away, I'm not doing my job correct. But what I hear you saying, and this is how I practice now too, is like, I have a pretty good pattern to get us started with. I know hopefully is going to move us in a direction, but it is why it's a practice. When you see them again, how did the needle, so many puns here, where did the needle shift? Where did it move? Where is it pointing us now? Did we
Yes.
absolutely fail, right? Like we got worse. That's diagnostic. That's helpful. That helps us move to a different pattern. Or did we move in a step that is in alignment with what the patient wanted, right? In terms of how they wanted to feel. And that is, like you said, it's in a layer. That's why we see people again. And I think it's important to say it out loud so that we can also give ourselves permission to have that conversation with our patients too. I've been using this term in the clinic more, slow medicine. We
Yeah.
are practicing slow medicine. Remember, there was that movement of like slow food movement
Yes.
a while back.
Slow fashion, slow food. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
All of it. Yeah.
So
I love that.
I've been really using that and people get it. They're like, "Oh yeah, I get it." I was like, "This medicine is slow medicine." And if you're not willing, I get it. Might not be for you, but they love it. They're like, "Oh, that makes so much sense." And so I say every time we come in is an opportunity for us to reassess to make sure, like, are we still on the right path? And they love that.
Yeah.
But to verbalize it rather than saying, nope, I'm going to have a pattern diagnosis and that's what it's going to be for the next, you know,
12 weeks. Yeah.
until 12 weeks until it's better. It might sound good, but and maybe that's how some people practice too, but that's not how I practice. It's definitely more of like every time I see them, I'm able to gather just a little more information, a little more information. And based on that, each time we can hone in and get more specific, more individualized along the way.
Sure. There's a time and a place for everything, right? And I have two things that came up. One is I love your slow medicine, and I would also add slow sustainable medicine. That's how I talk to clients.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like we want these changes to stick. In order to get them to stick, we can't, blow it up and everything's going to be better. We want these changes to stick. So I would add slow and sustainable. I love 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 that. And the other part is we all practice differently. If it goes up against you that we're saying tweak your treatments when you've been taught or your style is use the same treatment forever until, you know, you don't need it anymore, then that's okay. It's okay for us to be a little bit uncomfortable. It's okay. I'm not, and I know Juanani is not. We're not judging. It's just how can we each provide the type of service that we might want to receive? And we're talking about these deep elevations that are going beyond symptom clearing and into the elevation of life. And when we're there, one pattern over time isn't the whole picture. If it was, then I mean, it would be way easier and everybody would be coming to acupuncture and it might be a standard. But there's nuances and like I said, add the one point in for the spirit. Like just hear what that client is saying today. Yes, sure, I'm sure you're right. I'm sure they do have liver fire rising and they've got some, I don't know, pick something, spleen and kidney chi deficiency along with that. Great. Those are your things. That's what you're working on. And listen to that client when they tell you, how are you feeling today? And you listen to them and you meet them where you are. And if there is a point, just look at the point names. Don't even think about what it's for. Look at the point names, add a spirit point, and intend for it to be a spirit point and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can really meet them where they're at. Do you tell people the spirit point name?
It so depends. It depends. Okay. So in the tradition of classical 5 elements acupuncture, you're not meant to tell the client the spirit of the points. And so you just kind of go in with your point story that meets them exactly where they are. And sometimes I do it that way, and other times I love the point story and how it meets the person, and the person I know is going to connect even deeper to the treatment if I give them just a little bit about the spirit of the point that or just the name that yeah, I tell them that point story. I bring them in, I tell them about it, I share it. And I would say for me, it's probably like 33% of the time, maybe less than that. 25% of the time I share and 75% of the time I don't.
Yeah, you get to read into what they want and how much they want to know about their treatments and what you're doing. I've had a few listeners reach out and talk, especially listening to your episode, a few other of the episodes where we've talked about pelvic health or reproductive health. And I have a lot of people, and it's probably just a reflection of my age and who I'm hanging out with, but a lot of people talking about perimenopause and the changes that they're starting to see. Some people are like, oh, it's happening so much sooner than I thought it was. Other people are like, no one told me what was going to go on. Some people have had
Yes.
the good fortune of having very open conversations with their family members or um, moms or aunties, and then they start going through it, and it's totally different, And they were like, "Oh, I thought I was going to be like my mom or my auntie or whoever they had the conversation with." And it just seems to be such a confusing time. And we did talk about this idea of like our body moving through different stages,
Mhm.
and so I just kind of want to I touch point there because some of the listeners are going to or want me to really dig into this is like as we age,
Mhm.
As we move through our seasons of life, can we have this conversation of as our body's changing away from the most fertile years into the next stage, which is, I call them the wisdom years. What can we consider to be, from a pelvic health perspective, what is part of that seasonal change that some people might see as dysfunctional, but is just that's part of the seasonal change? And then the
Sure.
second part of that is what really are some yellow red flags that are not just I'm aging? It's kind of like two sides of the same coin conversation or question.
Yeah. Yeah. These are really good questions and a great topic. So we have to have a basic understanding that our hormones are changing. And as these hormones are changing, the body doesn't really n- know what to do or know how to react in many cases. And so that's why we can see the hot flushes with, the cold chills and sort of these vacillations with massive headaches and all sorts of types of discomfort. Those are the things that we start to see. And then what starts to come in is we start to see some of those vaginal vulva symptoms, like the libido, like the dryness, even atrophy, of the tissue and skin changes because estrogen is decreasing in our body. And so while these changes are somewhat expected, if they are causing disruption or dysfunction in one's daily life, then it's time to get some support. And, acupuncture is such a good resource for supporting clients that are going through the perimenopausal change and transition. And it is actually, how we were talking about that macrocosm, microcosm? I feel like the perimenopause is microcosm, microcosm, microcosm. You literally feel like everything is going okay now. Like I had, a couple of sessions with my acupuncturist. I'm great. I'm on board. And then another symptom comes in as things are starting to change. And then there's the insomnia component as well, the mental fog, you know what I mean? So there are so many symptoms that can be considered normal or functional or accepted or expected. And I want to urge people not to think that that means that they have to live with those symptoms, right? So there are ways in which we can help to get our bodies online and be efficient through these transformations. And the key is for us to, one, as like the person who is going through this, for us to be embodied in our bodies, to listen to our bodies, to listen to those symptoms, to identify, what, if I am eating, Indian food, for example, something very spicy, if I am eating Indian food, every time I'm eating Indian food, I'm ending up not sleeping during the night and ending up with hot flushes. Well, okay, probably from a Chinese medicine perspective, what we've got is those spices in that food, which are good during so many periods of your life, and they'll be good again, that they are, consuming that kidney yin and those fluids and that moisture, and that they just might not be the right food for you right now. And so some of these things are, we have to take ownership. What is our body telling us as we're going through this transformative phase? And as we are going through this phase, how can we get the support we need to guide us through the navigation of the things our body is telling us? Does that
Yeah.
make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so it is a journey. It is one in which I wish we were all talking about it so much more. I wish we were able to support each other with more knowledge, because it exists. And I wish people just were able to get help for it and not feel shame about it. And I wish people were like able to work a little bit less during this time because the stress of a body that's changing and working at the same level So very often this is what I see. I'm close to Boston, and so I see a lot of clients. I'm like an hour away. I see a lot of clients that are working these hot and heavy jobs. They have these great jobs, but to get them in for a session is, like an act of God. And they get in for their sessions, and it's in between, the 1 hour commute down and back, and their 9 to 5 that is highly stressful. And because they've walked up this corporate ladder and they're in these high jobs and they work so hard and they're women empowered and they're going beyond the expectations of women and they don't want to stop doing that. They don't stop. And by not stopping, the body is like, girl, what the,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, come on. And so there's a little bit of a time to say, "Hey, I need a little slowdown here." I can't go at this level right now. And I get why sometimes they want to. They're trailblazers, right? And so they have to
Mhm.
make those decisions for themselves. Like, do I stay on this trailblazing course because that's the most important thing to me and deal with whatever symptomology I have? Or do I make a choice that means I take a little bit of a step back in order to be inside my body and help it to heal?
That's really interesting because I also hear this opportunity if they're in that place of leadership and they've climbed that ladder for them to set a new example for everyone else in the office, which is, I'm still going to be this person. I'm still going to lead. I'm going to lead in a different way, which gives all of
Bingo.
you permission to lead in a different way, which is not burning the candle at both ends.
Right. Right. Yeah. What we see is, and I feel like what we see is either the trailblazers that don't do it in a different way and they keep going hard until it breaks and they have to stop. And that's a radical change. That's a, you know what? I'm not going to be the VP of marketing for this company anymore.
And in Chinese medicine talk, that's yang reverting to yin. Like you just went all yang, yang within yang until it reverted to yin because it broke, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So and there is a place. Well, I don't know. Maybe this is just my eternal optimist, and I'm not in that position, right? And so I don't want to dismiss or gaslight. I hope as more people talk about this stage of life, this season of life, and there are more female bodies going through this stage of life in positions of leadership, rather than push it off to the side as something I'm going to just deal with on my own, is to use your platform and to use that leadership and use
Yes.
the things you've built to say, hey, we're a lot of us are going through this right now because we've worked so hard to get here, and let's not ignore this. Let's bring this in to understanding ourselves better so that we can have a working relationship that is more inclusive of reality rather than
Yes.
ignoring it.
Empowerment is within that yin space, right? And so I think if we have leaders that are able to lead from that space, I mean, that is just so good for women and empowerment, and I love that. And I think we're on the precipice of really getting there. But to go a little deeper into, how can acupuncturists help this? Well, one, like we said, we can get the organ systems online, the organs and the organ systems online, use those patterns, right? Get things regulated. Use the extraordinary vessels. The extraordinary vessels, I feel like, are one of our best friends. Also, yeah, I also feel like during this time, it is a time when so many women are like, you know what? I'm not doing X, Y, and Z. I am not subscribing to this story that has not served me since I was 13. I'm not doing it anymore. There's like no more bullshit. And that means they are ready to deeply release these emotions and go back to what we can do with the extraordinaries, what we can do with the spirits, and we can push on that level so that what we are starting to create for that second spring is really really aligned. Is really really, this is who I am unapologetically.
Yeah, bringing in a potency of who that person is, like
Bingo.
allowing it to filter in so it's not maybe as scattered or pulled in the directions. It's a time to just like bring it all in and, like you said, unapologetically be you,
Right.
right? And
Absolutely.
all your quirks and all your beauty and all your yang and all your strength and your pushing. And also, I don't know, what's that? weird, quirky thing you've been pushing aside for 20 years because you didn't want people to think you were weird. It's time to bring it back, you know?
Bring it in.
Yeah.
Own it, love it, share it, all the things. Yeah, and I think the other component of this too that we have to think about is there is a change when there's a change in hormones, there's a change in fluid balance in the body.
Mhm.
There's a change in blood balance in the body. And so I think that I find it really, really helpful during the perimenopause years and during the menopause years to be able to, even if there isn't pelvic floor dysfunction, to be working with the pelvic floor and those concomitant structures because needling those tissues brings in qi, it brings in blood, it helps move those concentrations of fluid, that heaviness that sometimes gets stuck in the bladder, it helps to really move that and improve the homeostasis of fluids. If you are thinking you can heal your pelvis on your own, that is amazing, and like go forth, find something, some resource that speaks to you. If not, and I think most of us are going to fall into the if not category, especially if we are in the perimenopause, find a practitioner who can help you. Find a practitioner who's taken my course. We have a cool map on our website. It's like the pelvic acu map, and it shows all of our practitioners where they practice and kind of what they're up to. So find a practitioner that you can connect with, that you trust, that you resonate with, that can support you. And if you are a practitioner and you're like, this is a client population that I want to serve, this is a client population that I'm already serving, but I want to take it to the next level, then come take a class with me. I would love to have you. We are building, a community of conscious pelvic health providers. And for me, as a PT and an acupuncturist and a PT before I was an acupuncturist, I have found that as acupuncturists, we are the ones that are perfectly positioned to treat the pelvis because our system is really built on these three pillars. We can look at the musculoskeletal physical approach, those sinews, those musculotendinous structures. That is that superficial layer of what we do. We can look at the TCM pattern, which gets us to the organs and the organ systems because they're part of the picture. And then we layer on spirit, we layer on EVs, we layer on esoteric, whatever it might be that's in that realm of emotions and spirit. And all of a sudden, we're treating a whole person. And there are very few other professions that I can say, as a whole, as a totality, can do that as well as we can. And that's why I teach only to acupuncturists, is because I believe that this is not only in our wheelhouse, we are the key to helping pelvic health sustainability for ourselves and our clients.
I agree. The paradigm of the medicine and what it offers each of us as a conduit for it, but then for our communities is just so much more than the physical.
Absolutely. And if you can't see someone, just because, I always have to throw the extra in because I'm one of those people. If I have it, I want to give it to you. So if you can't see someone, do this. Get yourself a cork ball and start rolling around. Start on your bum. Sit on that thing, put it on the wall and, glide up and down the wall against it and then sit on it, kind of right in between your sit bones and kind of roll around on that cork ball and see what you find. And if there are points that are sore and tender, spend a little time there. It shouldn't be painful. If it's painful, then don't do it. Pain's a stopping point. That's too hard. But if it feels good to kind of get some of that tissue moving, that's a lot of what we want to do is start moving the chi, start moving the blood, and don't feel weird about palpating your own sit bones. What does it feel like? Is it sore in there? Like, what do those high hamstrings attachments feel like? What are those? Oh my gosh, those glutes are really sore, or whatever
Yeah.
someone might feel, but something in my butt here, yeah, that glute med is really tight on me. I got to do some foam rolling myself. So you can do those things, like get to know your body. So if you think you're going to be able to take this in your own hands and you want to walk this journey, whether it's with someone or you want to do it on your own in the privacy of your home, whatever that might be, like get to know your body. Do the thing that I said. Listen to what are the triggers? What are the symptoms? Make a journal of them and then start poking around. Start feeling what feels good. You know, can I palpate myself in a way that creates relief, creates tissue comfort, that creates mobility, right? Can I do some self massage? What does that feel like to me? And so many people are like, I never thought of that for myself. Of course not. We're not really taught to, especially in the Western world, to kind of feel into our own bodies that way. And
I would say that alone, feeling comfortable touching their own body is a huge step for some people. I mean, that's gonna bring up so many emotions just there, that first step.
right.
But and then it's layered, so for some people who are already have that connection and feel comfortable starting to massage and poke around gently, mindfully, with awareness, then, yeah, start to explore the different areas of your body. And earlier you said your inner thighs too,
Oh my
is having people massage the inner thighs. There's so many great meridians, the yin meridians, the meridians that come
absolutely.
in from our feet all the way up through our pelvis up to our chest, like we were talking about earlier, to bring it full circle. I follow channels, I do channel palpation, and usually we're taught to stop around the knees or the elbows. But for women, especially in their older age, I'll go above the knee, and it's amazing. You can have really open channels below the knee, and then all of a sudden move up to like
Finding
spleen,
sight.
yeah, OMG, and they're like, whoa, almost jumping off the table. So
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. We do get, if you're a practitioner and you get stuck in the pattern of, below the knees, below the elbows, and some abdomen work, you're missing so many good things. Um,
yeah.
so, where can we all push boundaries as practitioners? And that's something I ask myself on a regular basis too, is where can I push my own boundaries so that I
Mhm.
can be better? But yes, it's not even palpating the pelvic floor, you know what I mean? It's just the inner thighs, and start at the knees and like see, what do you find if you just walk up with your thumbs, walk up in synchronicity or in opposition, thumb to thumb, and it's like, "Oh, wow, there's a little something halfway up that's like, I wanna just stick my thumb in and massage a little bit." Do it. See what that
Yeah.
feels like, you know? What lives there? It doesn't matter if it's a point, it's a tender point, and that's all that matters, and it's your body telling you something. And what if you gave yourself that gift, to just spend time with your body? What if you just held that point
Yeah.
and allowed it to release, allowed it to speak to you? Allowed you to think, what lives here and why does it live here?
I
Yeah,
like that. And to add to that, if you're bruising yourself, you're pressing too hard.
too hard.
Yeah, yeah. We're not trying to bruise ourselves. I can see some people being like, "Oh, I'm gonna go all in now," and then they press too hard. So to press where there is sensation, and some people who are more energetic, I know I practice, and some people have more sensation when they're not touching their body, and when their hand is a little above the surface of the skin, and they can feel like, "Ooh, that's uncomfortable there." So again, speaking to your own comfort level and how you sense with your touch, whether it's on the physical body or hovering, like you said earlier. Those are all good ways. But I think it's both and. Like if you're used to only doing above the body stuff, it's time to touch in with the physical, right? Like to
Yeah,
the earth body. And
yeah,
those who've never considered like, oh, I'll never be able to feel that if I lift my hands off. Well, explore. You might be surprised.
yeah. See where you can go with it. And I think one other thing too, remember the movement of chi, right? Is like such a key to these transitionary times. So it's easy to think when our body is in discomfort, especially when we are in a high demand job or family life or whatever it might be, that we just kind of want to nestle in and, hole up and snuggle into that fetal position. But movement is really, really important. And so, if we're a practitioner, to be able to encourage our clients to continue moving their bodies in some way, whatever that is that makes them excited. Like if they don't love the gym, then don't go to the gym. If they love to dance, then dance, dance it out for 5 minutes at the start of the day or the end of the day where they love. If they like a little bit of Qigong, there's tons and tons of videos on YouTube that they can connect to, whatever, but just some type of intentional movement, moving chi, moving blood through that physical modality of movement, I think is so, so important. And if you're listening as a client, then, find something you love. And it doesn't matter what it is. Maybe it's broom ball. I don't know. But whatever it is that you love, just do that. And it doesn't have to be for a long period of time. It just needs to be for, a short period of time, even walking. Maybe you love walking outside, even in the winter. I have a couple of clients who are like, I walk no matter what. I put spikes on my shoes because we have so much ice in New England right now, and it's like, "Cool, so you do that." But that chi movement in your brand of movement is really vital to staying healthy during that seasonal transition.
I think a layer I would add to that too is not only just movement, but movement that brings you joy,
Yes.
not just because someone prescribed it to you. Right?
Yes.
Because if you just add to your to-do list, you're just adding more stress. You're depleting more. But find a movement that speaks to you, that makes you have that spark of joy again, or and not every day, like nothing's ever 100%, but you know you're gonna be happy you did it when you do it at the end.
Yes. Yes.
Because I am seeing more and more of that, of like these effervescent, lovely people. And we're getting to that place in our life where we're just adulting. We're adulting a lot and we're depleted. And the people who used to be so joyous and spontaneous are just like, I'm tired. It's like, I get you. So, part of that holistic prescription for ourselves is to think about, I know movement is important for me. I'm going to move. I'm not just going to move because my doctor says to move, but find a movement that brings me joy, that makes me giggle, that makes me sweat, whatever it is that's going to make you light up just a little bit to feel more of yourself, that nourishes you,
Yeah.
connects to you
Grab
with
that
that.
sparkle.
Yeah, yeah, grab that sparkle.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
love that. I think that's a really, really, really nice kind of elaboration.
yeah. I'm just seeing so many, we're at that stage where we're really good at our plates are so full. When I say our age, like if you're in menopause, you're also kind of at the stride of your career for a lot of people. And so you have these, and if you have kids, they're also great, right? Like there's just so much going on that it's really easy to just say, okay, someone told me to do this, add that to my to-do list, do it. And I'm seeing more and more people's to-do lists get so long. It's like, where's the joy in that though? Are you living? Like, is that really helping if it's just another thing that's making you stressed out because your to-do list is longer than it's ever been? And so I've been trying to find ways, and I want to walk my talk, and I don't think anyone else needs to do that. But for me, I'm noticing I'm part of that. I caught myself a few years ago just being like, this is life. Like, what happened to the adventurous, fun, joyous part of me that I enjoyed? Like, I missed that part. So I've been working. It's been a practice to like, yeah, I know movement's good for me, but I also like, I want to do it my way now, not the prescriptive way. Right. Like,
Absolutely.
and I found a
Yeah.
huge difference. And yeah, and I'm seeing it too in a handful of clients that I see that are in that age. I see a lot of younger people right now, but I do have a handful of people who are in their perimenopause, menopause stage, and I ask them like, "What do you do for joy?" And they're like,
Mhm.
it's a very, very long
It's
pause.
yeah. Yeah. I hear that a lot too. And I think that is such a good like how Nani, you bring up a good question that all of us as practitioners should be asking our clients on the regular. How are you experiencing joy right now? What are you doing to experience joy? Do you have joy in your life? Some variation of that, whatever you are as a practitioner, or if you're a listener, whatever that resonates with you, grab that and spend a little bit of time with it because what are we here for? Like, let's just go all in. What are we here for if not to experience in this physical body that we have for this life joy? What is the point otherwise? Why are we here?
I mean, I know for me, life is so much better when there's a little laughter, giggles, silliness, joy. It's also maybe part of my constitution. And I also notice as the main female of this household, when I allow myself more joy, to be silly, to not care so much, the ripple effects are like a tsunami through the house. Anything that I'm going through, that's what's going through this house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it makes huge ripple effects. Some of us think it's selfish, and maybe it
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
I'm at that age where I'm like, yeah, I get to be a little selfish. Like, I don't care anymore. I
I
want to
don't
be a
care
little more
anymore.
I want to be a little more selfish. In fact, especially if you've given and you've been of service to others your whole life, like, yeah, it's my time to be a little more selfish, and I'm happy with that, and everyone else is happier too. Um,
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think if we are in the mindset that this is our existence, our life in this body, and that is finite. What do we want to do with it?
Mhm.
That's a really good reflection. What do we want to do with it? Is it just about the work and the responsibilities and the to-do list that you mentioned? Or is there something more? And I just think we're built for something more. Our spirits don't give an F about the to-do list, really.
Or how much money you made or what title you just won.
Truth, truth. Yeah, the spirits are here to, like, play and interact and, kind of reach out and, like, connect with each other, like, touch each other on this level, like, of this conversation. My spirit's really happy, like, I'm elated, to just chat and have some of these conversations that push boundaries and explore in myself, how can I be a better person? How can I be a better practitioner? How can I be a better teacher? All of those things through this conversation, like, that just makes me feel alive, and it makes me think that I'm in the space where I can feel pretty good about being situated or connected to what is my purpose for this life. And that's cool. That's a cool feeling. And if someone is not there, if your client's not there, if you're not there as a listener, that's okay. You don't have to know exactly what that feels like. But if you want that, if you desire that feeling, then that is your body, that is your being, that is your spirit saying, "Hey girl, you are built for more. Let's go there. Go chase that whatever that is."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that word you kept using is really resonating with me is that connection. So much of life asks us to disconnect, disconnect from how you feel, disconnect from your body, disconnect from what your inner knowing, disconnect from cultural roots, disconnect, it's like it's just one thing after another that cuts
Yes.
those cords. And what I hear you saying and what I also am going to piggyback on is like yes, connect, reconnect. I truly believe and this is how I go into clinic too is I know deep down everyone knows what they need to be doing for themselves. I trust they actually know that. It's just we have a million excuses or habits or patterns that have gotten in the way of that internal voice. And so, yeah, just especially bringing it back to this perimenopause stage too, and what we were talking about in terms of pleasure, right?
Y-
Like I think so much of what we can offer collectively as a profession in conversations like this, right? Like we still haven't met in person. And although I feel like I could text you and have the most intimate conversation about anything physically, health wise, or
Likewise.
spiritually, is to connect. Like, where have we disconnected?
Yeah.
And start making the decision that I'm going to reconnect. And as those connections come back, you're going to feel that authentic self come back online. You're going to hear that inner voice again. You're going to want to move in the way that serves you.
Yeah.
You're going to seek out practitioners who are listening to you rather than just because they have the right credentials, right? And I think that's really important. So choosing to reconnect. And it is a choice because it's actually inertia keeps us disconnected.
Mhm.
So it has to be this like conscious effort to connect again, connect with your body, connect with someone else's body. Look at someone in the eye when you're walking down the street. Have compassion for the customer service person who's getting yelled at all the time.
Yeah.
Intentionally connect.
Yes. Yes. I would say I would sort of kind of like wrap this part of the combo up. I love where we've gone, and I would say here's my like gold nugget for if this is connecting with you, if you've connected with us through this perimenopause menopause journey. Here's the last bit of wisdom about connection. Go to the mirror. Look at yourself in the mirror and connect with yourself. Say hi. Start a conversation with yourself and see where you go from there. And then go. Do not apologize. Just go. Go to yourself, go to your spirit, feel into it, get support that you need, and lean in because even though this phase is uncomfortable, even though this phase is making you a little bit crazy, and yes, it is, you are valid. All the things that you are feeling are 100% valid. Yes, that the next season is going to be different. And it is the rebirth season. And going into that rebirth, set yourself up through this uncomfortable, through this discomfort, through this uncertainty, through the dregs of it, so that what's next is yeah, that feels good. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, this is my family. This is my life. This is what I'm here for.
And let's bring it full circle. This is you stepping onto your veranda. This is you like stepping out, arms open. Like, here I am, world.
And the breath, right? And that breath of relief.
Yeah. Well, we didn't talk about any of the conditions we thought we were going to talk about, but this is even better. I just adore you.
This is I don't know where any of this came from. It just came. It was not I had so many good points. I wrote them down that I really thought we were going to talk about today, and we went in a totally different direction as per usual, but I love how authentic our time is together, and I hope people who are listening or whatever feel into or watching. I don't know. They watch? They listen?
I
They do
listen,
both?
watch. Yeah, both.
Yeah. So that they feel into the authenticity of it and they can connect with where we're going here. I feel like this was kind of like a coaching session, an up-leveling of energy session, and some Chinese medicine kind of sprinkled in along the way. And I guess that's how I am in life. Chinese medicine is a lens, but it's not the only lens. I can't talk in Chinese medicine all day, every day, because there are so many people that I'm connecting with that can't speak that language, right? And so kind of connecting into that idea of just being human. And here we are, imperfections and all, sharing, being, pushing, elevating, loving.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I think I felt more of the water side of you last time, but now I'm really feeling the fire and it feels very exciting to see where this can go. So, we've already done rapid fire with you, but I do have just a few questions, kind of like a mini rapid fire. I'm curious what you're thinking these days. So, what do you think? Are you open? Do you have time to do it real
Yeah,
quick?
yeah, we're good.
Okay. Okay. So, what's one thing we're overlooking in the wellness or the healthcare industry, especially when it comes to like pelvic health, that you wish people paid more attention to or you wish they knew about?
Yeah. There is support. That is the key. There is support that is out there. Your acupuncturist can help you, or they can refer you to an acupuncturist who can. There's help available. So don't hold your symptoms in. Don't hold your insecurities in. Don't hold back because of shame. Get support. It's there. It's available. There are amazing practitioners that will support you and not judge you and not make you feel shame and help you get past whatever it is that you're experiencing.
Thank you. I so
Yes.
agree. What's a commonly held belief with that you see with your patients and or you see online in the wellness industry regarding pelvic health that you wish would go away?
That I wish would go away. You surprised me with this one. Yeah, I mean, the standard response is kind of like Kegels are the answer to everything, right? So that obviously that needs to go away. We've had enough of that. We need individualized care. We need to see what's going on. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's blanketing. It's like blanketing that every pelvic health dysfunction is the same and they're not.
What or who is inspiring you these days?
I am reading this amazing book. I think it's called The Girl Who Touched the Stars.
Ooh, I got shivers when you said that.
Yeah, it's really good. So it's this, I believe it's an Australian woman, and she decides that she is going to paddle in some carbon fiber kayak around Australia. And it's been done like 4 times before she attempted it. I don't know if she's done it or not. But I'm super into it right now. She is going in the opposite direction that everybody else before her has done it. And rather than hugging the coastline, she is going offshore by like 500 kilometers so that she can have the shortest route around. So it's really inspiring me. She's obviously a female athlete who's just doing something that is pushing boundaries. And at a time in her life when she could have chosen other things, and she's a healthcare provider, a dietitian, I think, and she chose to take a break from her 3 clinics in order to take on this feat. So I'm really inspired by it. I'm curious by it. I think it is a cool story. And so that's kind of what I'm into right now.
Thank you. And final question, because we are recording this right after the January New Year. What are you looking forward to in 2026?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I am looking forward to and dreading. In February 17th, we have the year of the fire horse. My daymaster is the fire horse. So I'm excited to really see how this energy goes. I'm also totally petrified that I'm going to fall off the horse because I feel like energy is moving so fast. Like I already feel it coming in and it is just wild. So I guess let's go for a ride.
I know we said it last episode, but where can people reach out to you and find you if they've really connected with you and they want to find a practitioner in their area and check out your map? Where do they go?
Yeah, for sure. My practice is located in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It's a small practice, but eh, my primary for practitioners is the Pelvic Acu, THEPELVICACU.com. The Pelvic Acu, where we teach pelvic health continuing education to acupuncturists and only acupuncturists, and we're optimizing pelvic health 1 point at a time.
And if you take one of her, I'm just throwing this in here as a plug, you might meet me in person at one of her events this year. I've already committed to that in my 2026. So I'm
Yay!
excited.
So we'll be in this year in March. I think this will come out before March. Yeah. So in March, we will be in Boulder, Colorado. We'll be in Los Angeles in April. We'll be in the DMV area in May. And then in the fall, Seattle and Toronto. And then we have a really exciting, I'm saying it out loud for the first time. We have a really exciting retreat planned for November. So stay tuned for that.
And I'll put all of this in the show notes for people listening. And as soon as you have that retreat, let me know. I'll push it out on my side too. I'd love for that to fill up real quick for you.
Fabulous. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Haunani. Yeah.
absolutely.
You know what? Why don't we give your listeners a coupon? Why don't we give them Yinspired listeners like $100 off or something? How about that?
Yeah, let's do it. We'll connect with
Okay.
that and we'll make sure it's on the show notes when when this comes out. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So
That's awesome.
we'll make that happen because if people are connecting, if they're loving this, then, let's reward them. Let's share something together. Let's,
Let's
put it out
connect.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely.
connect in the real. That would be great. Thank you
Yep.
so much. That's so generous of you and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you so much, Haunani, for having me again and for going deep into pelvic health and the sinews and the EVs a little bit and the spirit. I love how you're holding space for these types of conversations on your podcast, and it's a real gift to practitioners and clients alike.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your willingness to join on this journey that it's kind of like taking me on its own journey. So I really appreciate it. And just so people are aware, some of the things we thought we were going to talk about today, which means we're just going to have you back on, is PCOS, the connection between the jaw area, the neck area, and the pelvis. What else did we talk about? Endometriosis.
Endometriosis, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have you back on. And that's just a little planting seed and teasers for when you come back. And maybe we'll actually get to the things we thought we were going to talk about.
And there are so many spirits that I want to walk you guys through too. So, we'll plan for that. We'll do something exciting. This is certainly not the end of our relationship together.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with someone who would appreciate it. Your support helps create positive ripples in our communities. If you want to continue this conversation, if you have questions for me or the guest, or you just want to explore more of what Yinspired has been putting out in the world, please visit our website at yinspiredpod.com and it will take you to our Substack. That's where Yinspired lives. And you can subscribe for free. If you subscribe, you will receive every new episode straight to your email, plus access to transcript, show notes, resources, and the opportunity to join the discussion. From my heart to yours, create a day you love. This podcast is for entertainment, education, and inspirational purposes only. Nothing in this podcast is diagnostic or direct medical advice and does not establish a practitioner-patient relationship. Seek care from a highly trained medical provider for your healthcare concerns.